Now, let's take a little bit more of a look in depth into the front pages this morning. Joining us with the time now at 5:18 is Lettice Bromovsky, who is political commentator with Young Voices UK. Good morning, Lettice. Just tell us what's jumped out on the front pages of the Times for you this morning.
Good morning, Anna. Thanks so much for having me on, first of all.
It's a pleasure.
So, first of all, on the front page of the Times, what definitely jumped out at me was this university's New China crackdown for cash. New China cash crackdown. And basically, this story is revealing that universities will be forced to reveal who their investments and their donations are from, were from what it describes as foreign actors. And this is all in an attempt to crack down on undue influence and stop the UK being compromised in its values and integrity. This change will be proposed today as an amendment to the Higher Education Bill, and it is mainly focused on donations from hostile nations such as Russia and China. This story is a sort of growing development from one last week that the Times revealed that Jesus College in Cambridge had actually received hundreds of thousands of pounds from a single investor who is considered one of China's most wanted men. And back in March, again in his prestigious universities, it was reported that Oxford University had accepted more than 3 million from Vladimir Potanin, not to be confused with Vladimir Putin, but another Russian billionaire who is a close crony of Putin. This move is a move to make donations and universities on the whole more transparent. I think this is an important move. Back in January, we did see Barry Gardner, the Labour MP, who had received up to £500,000 from a Chinese communist agent. And this is where I think this concern lies, particularly with this story. What's the intention? What's the influence that these donations are bringing? And ultimately, what are they having over our education system and our graduates coming out of this system?
Yeah, I wonder, Lettice, what do you think? It says that the move is to stop UK values being compromised. What values are we talking about here then?
I think ultimately it just comes down to, like what I was saying, that these hostile countries at the moment, it's about we are not in directly war with Russia, but we're in this proxy war with Russia. And there has been ongoing issues with China and them having influence over sort of our education system and those who are educated. On the whole, this scheme may have a few flaws. Right now, the threshold for reporting is at £75,000. So there may be ways that there can be found to skirt around detection. But it will be interesting to see if this will work, as universities are very reliant on these big donors, particularly those prestigious ones such as Oxford and Cambridge.
Yeah, just to point out that you compared it there to the story that was around earlier in the year about the former shadow cabinet minister Barry Gardner, who received hundreds of thousands of pounds, we should say, from an alleged Chinese government agent. And he did say at the time that he was deeply distressed to learn that one of his biggest donors had been illegally trying to influence British politicians. But this is an interesting story on the front page of the Times. Let's just move on to another story. The issue of Rwanda. We're going to talk about this a bit more in Early Breakfast shortly. But the deportation plan, are these flights going to take off, do you think?
That is the question of the day, really. This flight is supposed to take off, carrying 31 of these migrants. The ruling in the High Court on Friday made the decision that the government's plan itself, the scheme, was legal. However, today, as it is reported on the front of the iPaper, there will be an appeal against this decision. And again, on the front page of the Mail, it talks about how these 31 individuals have their own legal challenges against being on this flight. However, symbolically for the government, this is hugely important. The government right now needs a win. And if we look way back to the 29 election campaign, this taking back control of our borders was an incredibly popular one, and one that really, won the government many of its votes. And so I believe that if it does take off, which they're saying this plane will take off, even if it only is carrying one migrant, it will take a bit of the pressure off Boris from these backbench Tories. But it's also saying that this, if it works for the first time, it will continue to go forward. We know that Priti Patel has invested in things like Facebook ads coming up next week to try and increase the deterrent of people crossing the channel. The government's invested a lot in this, and going forward, it'll be very interesting to see whether this will be a good spend of taxpayers' money. I mean, if it's only taking off with one migrant every time, and there's such a huge swathe of legal challenges against the Home Office every time this happens, will this be financially worth it for the government?
Yeah, well, we know that there is going to be another appeal today. We're going to hear from somebody involved in that on Early Breakfast shortly. But let's just look at one final story, Lettice. Prince Andrew is asking for his royal status back, and he wants to be back on official royal duties. Do you think this is going to happen?
I think realistically not. We saw on the front page of The Sun today that Charles and William have lobbied the Queen to actually prevent Andrew from appearing at the Order of the Garter ceremony today. I think that this is completely the right move. It's been barely a few months since Andrew settled his court case. And although it is important to be clear that he wasn't actually charged with anything and he received no guilty verdict, the court of public opinion is very clearly still opposed to him. And ultimately, what has he been doing over these past few months? If he truly wanted a real return to royal life, he needs to be out there and proving himself sort of much more, working behind the scenes, doing good and trying to change that opinion against him for the sake of the people, not the sake of publicity and the cameras.
Lettice Bromovsky joining us, political commentator with Young Voices UK. Thank you very much for taking us through the front pages this morning.